I was shocked for like days, thinking, man, do grown men really act like this? This is insane.
Welcome to the Top Contractor Podcast, a show that highlights remarkable individuals who are shaping the construction industry and pushing its boundaries with engaging interviews, expert discussions, and real-world stories of success. I'm Bill Ryman, your broker builder, here with my co-host.
What's happening, guys? This is Nate Swink here on another episode of the Top Contractor Podcast.
Love that, Nate. You sounded just like Brian Hess.
I tried. That was close, right?
That was a good one. That was a good imitation. I love it. That was
Yeah.
pretty spot on. Nah, welcome to the show, everybody. We appreciate each and every one of you guys listening. You know the routine. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Goes a long way. Nate and I do this because of you, trying to give back to the construction community, give you guys real life examples of what we go through, our struggles, our wins, everything in the construction business. That's why we're here. And today we got a good topic, Nate. We're talking, and I deal with a lot of these, dealing with client issues, how to deal with your clients' issues, what ways to go about it. I know there's a lot of people out there that listen to the show, a lot of people in the construction world dealing with issues. You know, we all do it. If you don't have issues, you know, Nate and I talked about on the last episode, growth and scaling. Well, when you grow and you scale, issues come. Because if you don't have problems, you're not growing. That's just how business goes. So,
Yep.
Nate, before we...
It's, oh, yeah. Let me first tell you guys what the show's about.
Yeah, you go into that right now. Nate, what's the show about?
All right. So the Top Contractor Podcast, we got 3 styles of. So number 1 is a deep dive into a specific topic. Number 2 is an expert interview. Have one of those coming up. It's going to be a banger. We can't even tell you who it is yet. It's going to be a wing-dinger. And number 3 is construction news. But what I was going to say before Bill rudely interrupted me to do the intro is like conflict with clients is something that's mentioned. Geez, can I speak English today? Mentioned like weekly in the inner circle chat thread, right? Like somebody dealing with something. Hey, I got an issue with this, or I got an issue with that with a client, or an expectation fell through with this. So this is a major topic, and it will really define your culture, and it will define you and your brand, how you deal with conflict and how you deal with client conflict in particular. So, Billy, take her away.
Yeah, man, it's huge in all construction businesses, and a lot of people don't really know how to deal with client conflict. And we've touched on points of this throughout our episodes and stuff like that. There's some of our life experiences, but I think a lot of people struggle with the outcomes. They always overthink and they think ahead of what the outcome's going to be, so it delays them a little bit on, you know, just dealing with it head on, going right into the problem and solving it, talking to the client, having a discussion on the phone or in person is what I recommend. And, you know, I think, you know, people just, them overthinking it, it drags it out, things get worse, and things don't get resolved, you know. And if you have issues with clients and they don't get resolved, you're more than likely going to have more issues because they're going to be looking for things as well too. So and also, Nate, you go into it a little bit because then I'll go into my side of stuff and what I deal with too, because it's always, Nate and I have different perspectives on this. Nate being more on the subcontracting side, me being on the GC side of things, the builder side, dealing with the client directly. So, you know, I'm dealing head on with the client. Nate's dealing more with me. So, Nate, on your side of things, dealing with builders like you are in California, what are some things you've done to prevent, you know, disagreements, problems, issues with your builders?
Yeah, I think a lot of it all comes down to communication. and clarity of expectations. And that starts, right? The first thing is your work scope. So make sure that your scope of work is accurate. I would review it with the GC because sometimes they just sign this stuff. I'm sure Bill doesn't do that because he's dialed, but there's some lazy GCs that are just signing things, boom, running through it. That's on the GC side. On the subcontractor side, review what you're signing and make sure that you guys are on the same page from day one, right? We review everything. We mark up contracts and send them back usually every time because we want to make sure everybody is on the same page, right? Another thing, if you're sending a contract to a client, and I learned this from Keith Jr., is if it's a DocuSign, you can make them initial next to all the scope of work items. That way they physically have to, if they tell you, oh, I didn't see that in the scope of work, you should have that included. It's like, hey, it was in exclusions. You initialed the box on DocuSign right next to that specific exclusion, and the 20 others I made you initial 20 times next to each exclusion. So it's like, how much more could you over communicate and cover your ass? And that's really all it is from the beginning, you know. And look, everybody has good intentions. At the end of the day, everybody, for the most part, has good intentions, and it just comes down to being on the same page, right? Having the same expectations, the same goal, wanting to get their project done.
Yeah, one thing, you and I are both, you've read this book multiple times, and then I'm reading it now, the Patrick Bet David, the Patrick Bet David
Next
book.
5 moves.
Yep, next 5 moves. And one of the things I wrote down that he said too is the best entrepreneurs deal with the symptoms and get to the heart of the problem right away. So, like Nate and I said, if there's an issue, deal with it head on too. And another big thing on my end too, which I'll admit this used to be a thing with me, it's probably a thing with most contractors in general, is don't let your ego win too. When you're dealing with a problem, don't let ego get in front of you. Don't let, you have to be the one to win the battle. Because most of the cases, if you just say you take some ownership for it, more than likely things are going to work out for the best too. And you going into what I just said, solving problems fast. I had a client recently who he selected a certain wood floor. I like to use real world examples, so you're gonna hear a lot of them today. But we had a client select a certain wood floor, saw the sample, approved the sample. The wood tones on the sample are different. It's a natural wood floor, so obviously wood, the way the tree is cut, things are going to be different shades and so on. Well, he came in after our installers installed the floor. He didn't like the floor, or he didn't like how there were certain lighter pieces spread in between. So we could have said, you know, that's tough, man. I mean, you picked it. It is what it is. Uh, Sorry. I mean, you approved it. We have your signed approval right here on the selection. But no, instead, we met him there. We even went there and taped a few of them ourselves because, we listened to them. That's one of the key things, too. Listen to the client, just to show that we had some initiative in this. And then he said he was going to go there over the weekend and do it himself. Well, after the weekend, he went over there and he blue taped, I mean, hundreds of them. It was just like blue tape, and we're just like, all right, this is crazy. It takes to rip out wood floor planks, when they're already installed is not an easy task. For those of you that don't know the flooring business, but it's very hard to do. So what we did to resolve the issue, instead of just telling them no, tough luck, man, it is what it is, we actually called the installer. We called the person we got the floor from, so this is sales rep we use, and then she called the manufacturer of Mirage Floors, who drove over from the other coast to meet with us too. And then we brought both clients there, and then we had our selections coordinator, my brother, and I there. So all these different people were in the room there. Why? because so we can go through one by one and explain, like, this is the natural wood, this is how it is, this is, have everybody there in person, deal with the situation. Yes, there was some that we marked and kept that we agreed just didn't look good. I mean, the tones were way off, it just stuck out like a sore thumb. But we actually found ourselves peeling some of his blue tape off and making it less, because we're like, what do you think about this one? This one looks okay, it fits with this one and this one if we change that one. So having those discussions with the client and taking the time to do that made less work for us. We're going to resolve it. The manufacturer is going to replace it for free at no cost because they agreed to, and they want our client happy. So everybody's happy. And the client came up to me. He's like, Bill, this is great. I really appreciate it. He goes, if your guys, charge for having to rip it out and for the install, he goes, that's on me. So he even understood, because of the way we went about things. He, because if we went about it a wrong way, he would have been like, you guys pay for everything, you guys do this, but it's everybody working together with the client. So that was just one example of move fast on it, take care of the situation, but have strategic ways of dealing with the situation. Don't just, go there alone. Like, you have your vendors, your subs, they usually should back you up, especially if you're a good contractor. I know, Nate, for your good contractors, you'd 100% have their backs if there was a problem with structural or anything, too. I'm sure, right?
Um, no, I would. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I would. Yeah, it's a team, There is times too where it's like, hey, the sub jacked it up. He messed it up. We didn't catch it, and he's gonna fix it. Sorry. So yeah, you want to back up your subcontractors because we sub out a decent amount of work, over seven, multiple seven figures of it a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a time to back them up and also a time to hold them accountable with some of that stuff. That's in a whole nother dealing with conflict. It's like, hey, what the hell are you guys thinking? This looks like crap. You guys just tried to blow and go through this, and it's not how we roll. You know that. So time to fix it. You know. So
Yeah. And going into the ego aspect of it, too, like I talked about, I mean, you can't be afraid to drop your ego and take some of the blame, take some of the initiative too. I mean, a lot of people I've learned too, when they put blame on themselves and say, oh, it's my fault too, you should be going back and saying, no, it's partially my fault. Put your foot down and kind of take some of the blame, because I think a lot of contractors struggle with that too. They don't want to take blame for things. But I just had another real world example here. We did a whole set of plans, blueprints ready to build, and this is a pretty big house, 8,000 square foot on a $11 million lot. So let's start there. But had a meeting last Monday. He called me. He's like, hey, I want to meet with you. And I was like, about what? He's like, I'd rather meet with you in person. Right there, my heart just dropped out of my chest. I'm like, is this guy going to back out of the contract? I mean, we were in for permit on this build. This is a big project. Long story short, we're all sitting down and he just goes, we're here because we're just really not happy with the plan, the overall plan. And we just, we feel like we've been piecing this thing together with the architect and we're just not getting where we want. This is our first house we're ever building and we just want this thing to be perfect. He goes, we feel like you're doing, we love what you're doing. We're not blaming you. We love what the decorator's doing. It's just with the architecture, we just haven't been happy. And he goes, and it's my fault. It's my fault. I should have said something before. And I was like, right in my head, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take some blame for this. And I cut him off. I was like, I'm gonna take some of the blame here because I was the one that introduced you to that architect. Our communication wasn't good throughout the process on the architect's
yeah,
end.
that's the
You
dude
know,
that takes forever to answer his phone, right?
yeah, the architect, and he was over his head. I mean, he was busy, too
Yeah.
busy. He's got one of the top builders in Naples he's doing on top of us. So I mean, just imagine all the work that he had at once, and just things were getting missed. Communication was horrible. So I took the
Mhm.
blame and I said, it was me. I should have shopped architects with you. Should have brought you around. I just brought you to my guy thinking, he could handle it, but obviously he was too busy and you guys didn't get the attention you should have. So I was like, later on in the project, we'll work something out, whether I get him a discount on something, whatever, to kind of, because they spent a lot of money too. So, and he's like, yeah, you don't have to do that. I was like, no, I'm going to do it. So just things like that, man, people remember that. And you taking the blame. He's like, you don't have to take the blame. I was like, yeah, I do, because I introduced you to the guy. So he's like, I appreciate that, man. So that's just drop the ego, is what I'm getting into on that too, and just take some initiative as well. Nate, what else you got?
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me how much grown men have such an ego, right?
Yeah.
Like a couple of weeks ago, we were on a project. Concrete guy was supposed to have everything prepped, all of our anchor bolt templates and everything for our steel columns. They were all covered in concrete, like he over poured concrete all over them, everything. Surveyor was scheduled to go out there and shoot all the points, the whole bit. And we called the contractor out in front of the owner, and he lost it, right? Because it's an owner builder, and we're kind of all contracted to him. And this dude lost his mind, threatening me, freaking out. And I'm just like, bro, you're a grown adult, you're married, and you have kids, and this is how you conduct yourself. Like, like literally losing your mind instead of saying, you know what, I didn't supervise my guys right. The stuff, my workmanship was horrible, and I'm gonna fix it. It's gonna delay the job, but that's my fault. He lost it, bro. Guy I've known for years, and now I'm just like, never doing any business with this guy again, because it's not even worth it. Like, culturally, don't even want to be near that guy. Like, how much he went off the rocker. I was shocked for like days, thinking, man, do grown men really act like this? This is insane. It's just, so yeah, you got to watch that ego. If you do something wrong, just, hey, we messed up. We could have done better. That's all you got to do.
And don't be afraid to, sometimes have to take, it can cost you money in certain situations, but you can't be afraid to do that, because sometimes that money that it's going to cost you to make a situation right will make you more money in the future, will make you more money down the road, because you're making it right with another client. They're going to refer you to friends and family too. And we've had that where, we had a pool deck situation. Pavers went down on it, and it's a second level deck where we were having water issues down below. And once again, basically, we kind of hit it head on, said, all right, we're going to figure this out, running water, doing all these things, trying to do the things to say, not spend a lot of money at first to see if we can resolve the issue. Issue didn't get resolved, so we ended up ripping out pavers along the deco drain, which is the pool drain. And come to find out, when our paver guys did the job, they didn't clean out the drain. The drain was completely clogged, so the drain wasn't even functioning. So that water was just sitting and finding its way down, leaking down below into, his garage area, basically. So we cleaned out the drain, waterproofed everything for them, and then repavered it, put the railings back on. All that stuff cost us money, but in the end, our subcontractors, once again, were very good to our subcontractors. A lot of them did it for nothing for us. I didn't ask them to do that. And then if they did charge us for it, they charged us a minimal amount for their time, without any profit into it too. Just because we're a good GC, we provide them a lot of work. We pay them right away too. So building those relationships with your subs too. Your subs are always going to take care of you, but you can take care of the client faster as well. And yeah, it cost us some money to do this, and a lot of builders would have just tried to get around the money thing. But I've learned spending a little bit of money in the scheme of things will get you a lot more money later on, so that's another thing I wanted to hit on as far as
Yeah,
issues.
it's something you want to make sure, if you damage something on a job site or whatever it is, pay to get it fixed. Make sure it's fixed. Don't just cut the person a check and or say, "Oh, you can deduct $1,000 off my thing." No, because you're not solving their problem. You're thinking that the money or the discount is going to make it better, and that doesn't make it better because the problem is still there. They still have to spend the time to solve the problem. Okay, so you need to stroke the check, but you also need to coordinate it, with them involved and make sure that the problem gets fixed, and not just say, "Oh, I damaged your driveway.
Mhm.
Here, I'll just deduct $1,000 off my invoice." Okay, great. So I just got $1,000 deducted, but I still got a effed up driveway.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna call and get it fixed. And what if the guy charged me $1,010? You know what I'm saying? It's not my problem. You call, you pay, you do it all, and then I'll approve who you use. Right? So too many people do that.
Yeah, going into that a little bit too, like we just had a situation on a neighbor's house, and we were driving pilings. The days that he was driving pilings, we build on the water primarily, in these open bay, open water areas. Obviously, have a good breeze coming off of them. It's an ocean breeze, so the day that he was driving, some of the grease from his pile driver was flying onto the neighbor's house. And I didn't know about it because I didn't go over and look at the neighbor's house, and check it after he was done driving. Usually we're good. This has never happened before. But so it was on there for a couple weeks, and then the neighbor got home and saw it, and then he called the person we're building for and was like, "Hey, there's grease all over my house. I can't get it off. I tried scrubbing." If we would have scrubbed it right away, it would have came right off, is what I'm getting at. But so anyway, the person we're building for calls us, lets us know, instead of just making excuses, and like a lot of builders would, and I say, or some builders would, because I know a few that would be like, "That's not my problem. It's the wind. What do you want me to do about it?" We went straight head on once again. Told the guy we'll take care of it. Met my painter over there. My painter looked at it. I called my pile driver. First thing he tried doing was using Dawn soap to try and get it off because it's grease, and then
Hey,
tried.
Dawn is good stuff. That's what they use to wash the duckies in the oil spills.
Yeah,
Don't you watch the
yeah,
commercial?
yeah. That's why we said, and that's why we used the Dawn, but it didn't work on this. It was too fried on
Ah,
from the sun. Yeah, and then he tried to degrease her. That didn't work, and so he called me. He's like, "Hey, man." Once again, a loyal subcontractor. He said, "Hey, whatever we got to do to fix this, let me know, and we'll make it right." I said, "I'm going to call my painter. I'll get a good price from him, and we'll go from there." He said, "Sounds good." So called my painter. My painter went over there, looked at the house. My painter ended up painting the whole entire house,
yeah.
on the exteriors, everything. And my customer was taking pictures, sending it to that guy. That guy was like, "I've never seen anything like this. You guys are amazing. How fast you dealt with it. You took initiative. This is amazing." And then she's sending him videos of the painters up on his roof, painting everything, making it right. He only wanted this one little section done, but we found more stuff throughout the house, and we wanted to just do a good job. So come to find out, that guy owns a couple of lots. He has a couple of partners. He's actually one of the CEOs of a big company too, and wants to build another house on a bigger view. So doing these good things is what I'm getting at, without an expectation of even knowing who he was, is going to lead to more business for us down the road, because they're seeing how good of a person, how good of a company we are, and a team that we're willing to take that initiative and make things right. So you
Yep.
just don't know, if you just take the initiative and do the right things for these people, it's going to lead to more business. And a lot of people think the opposite, and they always don't do it, and then they prolong it, and then it gets worse, and then it leads to less business. So
Yeah,
uh
and notice what Bill said. He didn't call the guy or go look at it and say, "Oh, well, here, I'll give you a couple $1,000. That should be enough to get it painted," because that doesn't solve the guy's problem.
yeah,
When someone's pissed off or whatever. You solve their problem. You don't throw money at them because money doesn't solve the problem. Okay, so that was a bitchin' example.
Thanks,
Paint
man.
a house.
Yeah, just do the right thing. And another thing I wanted to touch on too is past customers. Like another example yesterday. I had a guy, he's got water coming into his garage from below his concrete staircase. I've never seen anything like this. I think there's something dripping slowly inside the plumbing, inside the wall, that the water's finding its way down. That's just what I'm thinking. But we built this house probably 8 years ago now, and I still went over there. A lot of builders wouldn't even go over there. It's like 8-year-old house. Like, you're out of warranty, pal. I don't have time for this. He texted me earlier in the week. I said I'd meet you there Friday. He ended up calling me Friday, and I went over there. Great customer of ours. I met with him on a sliding glass door issue he was having. He just needed to get his sliders recalked because sun beats on them. You know, the caulk fails over time. You just get them resealed. But so this issue, I started looking at it. I was there for an hour, and basically where it left off, I took, there wasn't much I can do, but I can get my plumber over there. But first, I wanted him to turn off his water at night because he never did that. I was like, turn your main off and obviously wipe up the water that's there, but then turn your main off and see if any of that water trickles out overnight again. If it doesn't, there's a small leak somewhere. If it does still, then there's probably something with the plumbing underneath, a broken pipe somewhere or something where I could have my plumber come over and, fish through the lines with a camera and see if there's a crack somewhere. So I couldn't do anything at that moment. And he kept saying, it's really not a big deal. I just want to get your eyes on it. But my suggestions helped him go to the next step because he said he's been spinning around in circles trying to figure it out. So just doing those things to help your clients, your past clients, and continue to just take initiative. We keep talking about take initiative is going to benefit you as a business, as a person, as a contractor, because that's what we're there to do, is just help these people, and that's why we have the reputation of a company that we do. And going off of that too, there's going to be other clients that you had in the past that are going to try and push you around. They're going to try and leverage you. They're going to try and say things are your fault. I had that happen recently, and you're going to have to put your foot down. So there's moments, Nate and I are saying, you got to take initiative. You got to take initiative on everything, but not everything. I mean, there's going to be moments too where you got to put your foot down and say, hey, man, that's not my fault. I can look at it for you. But if it's an 8-year-old house, especially in Southwest Florida, where it's getting beat up constantly from the environment, things are going to happen, So I had a guy call me recently about a seawall thing. Let me express this one. He chose the seawall contractor. We never deal with the seawalls. We give them options of who to call, and if they want to go with the cheapest guy, that's their problem. So at this time, I guess he went with the cheapest guy, and basically the guy didn't continue. And this could have been he said, she said versus the seawall contractor next door just trying to get more work. But there was a guy doing a seawall next door, and he said, hey, your seawall is short by 3.5 feet. I think whoever put your wall in chumped you, basically, and you can either pay me to finish the wall or you're going to have one bad panel on your wall. So the guy automatically calls me and tries blaming me. 8 years ago, which I had nothing to do with this, and then he starts talking to me about complaining about other issues he had. Like, he goes, I went to go turn my heater on in my house and it didn't work and this is the first time I turned it on. I go, your house is 8 years old and you're just turning the heater on. It's probably going to be froze up, Then I've had that happen at my house where I went to use the heat last year and it didn't work too. These AC systems, we don't use heat in Florida that often. So, and these houses are pretty sealed up. But so he starts blaming me for the heat thing too, and just starts going. And I had to stop the guy and say, "Listen, I'm not going to sit here and be your punching bag." I was like, "You live in Florida. Things are going to happen to your house. Nothing's perfect. This is BS that you're saying this to me now." and I'm not going to sit here and take it. And then he all of a sudden was like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to harass you, man. This and that, blah, blah, blah. So, moral of the story is don't be somebody's punching bag. You got to put your foot down at some points too when things aren't your fault. You can be there and say, hey, I'll go look at it, which I did tell the guy, if you want me to look at the seawall, I'll go there and I'll bring the seawall contractor that I know out there too. He's like, no, I'll deal with it. But don't let them just sit there and, accuse you of things and try and get you to do things for free for them and stuff like that when it's technically not your fault. You can help, but you got to put your foot down in some instances. So I just wanted to touch on that as well. So Nate, what else you got?
Yeah, for sure. Doing too many favors, if you would, could put you out of business.
Yeah.
So always do the right thing, but there comes a time where you're going above and beyond, really, where you should be sending them a change order or something.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you're gonna feel it at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, just you gotta know when to help, obviously, and you could always help as a contractor. You could always be there, but if somebody's going to talk to you in a certain way, like it's your fault and stuff, you also got to know when to put your foot down too. And if you guys have questions about this stuff too, or if you guys got issues, problems, and you want to talk to Nate and I about it, feel free to reach out to us too. We can try and guide you through some of these because Nate and I have dealt with our fair share over the years. For sure. So
Yeah, for sure, man. One thing to note too is like the longer you've been in business, the more comfortable you're going to be in any of these situations, and also
yeah,
the less it should happen, because you should be learning from these situations
yeah,
and
for
figuring out
sure.
how to get around it, right? Even if it's something like the grease, right? Oh, I can't avoid the grease. Well, you could have, right? You could have put up some sort of construction screen wall or something, or they could have, right? Who knows? So there's always ways to, like, anytime an issue happens, that's when like the innovation should happen as well. How do we fix the issue? Even if it's something that's like wild, like how can we prevent that, So
Cool, man. I don't know. I think that wraps up this episode. Unless you got any more things to touch on.
no, it's good. That was a good one, man. Just, stay calm. Stay calm. Make sure you know what you're gonna say before you get in a situation. Otherwise, you'll get pinned down, like Bill's saying. You'll become the punching bag if you don't know right before you go meet somebody. Hey, if he says this, I'm over here. If he's this, I'm over here. Right? That's all part of preparing for a conversation or a negotiation or dealing with conflict. Right? Role play that out. So
Yeah, I like that too because I mean there are certain situations that you will get fired up and take ownership. Like I had a situation where I did get fired up. The one I was just telling you, where the guy was literally trying to pin all these little things on me on the phone. I started getting fired up, and I said, "That's BS." Blah blah blah. What you're saying is complete BS, and I kept saying that to him, and it kind of I got a little heated throughout the discussion, and then we ended up hanging up. And I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? I should have not reacted that way. I'm going to call him back. So I called him back, and I apologized for saying what I said. And I was like, if you need help, you want me to look at the seawall for you, I'm happy to do it. And he said, nope. And I said, all right, have a good day. So at least I left the situation on a higher place too for myself personally, where, even if he doesn't like me or whatever, that's okay. But I made the effort to apologize too. And just really think about what Nate said there. Like, you can play out the situation over and over. Don't overthink the situations, because I think a lot of contractors do that and they overthink the outcome of what it's going to be. I said that at the beginning, but role play of how you want to deal with it and just deal with it head on, because you're going to get way farther doing that than delaying it and dragging your feet with something. Just pick up the
yep,
phone,
for
call them,
sure.
and don't email them or text them either. So those never work. But anyway, with that being said, appreciate you all. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and Nate and I will see you guys on the next episode.